Hello, today I'm going to be reviewing the Lian-Li O11 Vision Compact, which is available from today in both black and white, priced at $119.99 US. But is this worth your hard-earned money? Let's dive in and take a closer look. To remove the tempered glass side panel, there's a captive thumb screw at the back. Once it's been loosened, the panel can simply be pulled out from the top and lifted away. And our other side panel can simply be pulled out from the top and lifted away. If you take a look at this panel, you'll notice there's perforations in it. They are for side intake fans and radiators, and also for our power supply's intake fan. You'll notice there's no additional dust filters, and Lian-Li are going with just mesh on the side. So you might be surprised to see a mesh panel on the top of a Vision case. It's held on with two captive thumb screws at the back, and once they've been loosened, the panel can be pulled backwards, lifted up and away. Again, if we take a look at the back of the panel, there's no additional dust filters. On the top of the case, we've got a removable fan stroke radiator bracket, which could accommodate up to 3 120 or 2 140mm fans, or up to a 360 or 280mm radiator. To remove the fan bracket at the top, first of all, you're going to have to remove the pillar between the front and the side, and then the fan bracket can be removed. If you prefer aesthetics to airflow, in the case accessory box there is a tempered glass panel that can be mounted on the top of the case, giving you a seamless look between the front, side and top tempered glass panels. If we take a look at our case's front I/O, at the top we've got our power button, while down at the bottom we've got two USB Type A ports, a single Type C port and a combined headphone and microphone jack. Lian-Li don't recommend removing the front tempered glass panel, as you shouldn't need to do this for most builds, although if you do want to do it, it is possible to remove it. In terms of other fan and radiator mounting options, at the bottom of the case you're able to mount up to 3 120mm fans or up to a 360mm radiator, while at the rear of the case it's up to 2 120mm fans. On the side of the case you're going to be able to mount up to 3 120mm fans or up to a 360mm radiator, and they are going to be mounted on a removable fan stroke radiator bracket. It is possible to insert this bracket in two different positions. In the default position, you've got 36mm of space on front of the bracket in the main body of the case, while if the bracket is reversed, this space increases to 110mm before you're going to have clearance issues with your graphics card. One of the really cool things Lian-Li have done with this case is you're going to be able to route your AIO tubes through the second compartment, helping hide the tubes. There's two different cutouts to route them through. If you've got a standard AIO, you're going to route them through the top cutout, while if you've got one of Lian-Li's new HydroShift AIOs, you're going to route it through the bottom cutout. You're then going to be able to pass your pump through the rubber grommet, which is going to give you a really clean look in the front. Despite being smaller than the O11 Vision, the case still supports motherboards up to E-ATX in size, and you can see the additional cutouts we have indicating that back connector ATX motherboards are supported. If you're not going with a back connector motherboard, there is a silicon cover you're going to need to remove to bring your EPS cables through. If you want to go with a CPR cooler, the maximum height supported is up to 167mm. At the rear of the case we've got 7 horizontal PCI expansion slot brackets, and in terms of graphics card support, the maximum length supported is up to 408mm. And your graphics card is going to be well supported in the case with the included GPU support bracket. And you can see on the bottom of the case we've got a full-length dust filter, and you're simply going to be able to lift it out from the side for cleaning. Moving into the rear of the case, in the middle we've got a magnetically attached cable covered door where you're going to be able to mount two 2.5-inch drives on the back of this. We've also got two hard drive cages down at the bottom of the case, and in each of these hard drive cages you're going to be able to mount either a 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drive. Your power supply is going to go just above the hard drive cages, and the case is compatible with full-sized ATX power supplies up to a maximum length of 200mm. And as you'd expect, coming from Lian-Li, the cable management is excellent. We've got plenty of Velcro cable straps and metal cable clips to help manage all your cables. So what I want to do now is give you a closer look at the build I put together in the case. So taking a look at our temperatures, our Ryzen 7 7900X being cooled by a 360mm AIO on the side set to exhaust, idled at 41 degrees and reached a maximum of 76 degrees during a 10-minute IDA64 stability test. The Aorus Master RTX 4070 idled at 25 degrees and reached a maximum of 49 degrees during the stability test. In terms of noise, we had average noise levels of 35 decibels at idle and 46 decibels under load. So the build I put together for the build guide, the fans in the radiator at the side were set to exhaust, and that was purely a choice based on aesthetics. Although these SL Infinity Uni fans do look good reversed, I wanted to use the original fans that came with the IO, and they do look much better in the forward facing orientation with the fans blowing air out the back of the case. But you may wonder what would happen if you change those to reverse bladed fans and set that IO to intake. So doing this, our CPU was 2 degrees cooler under load, although our graphics card was 2 degrees hotter under load, and there was no difference to the noise levels under load. So importantly, this is a case where aesthetics really matter, and most IOs are going to look much better on the side with the fans set to exhaust. Given that there's no real significant difference to the temperatures, I can't recommend buying a set of reverse blade fans and having the IO on the side set to intake, although depending on the hardware you're cooling, you may get slightly different results. So the other thing you might be wondering is, are these rear fans essential? So what I did was I removed them, and certainly in terms of aesthetics, the case did not look at all as good with the fans removed. And in terms of our CPU temperatures, removing the rear exhaust fan, our CPU was 2 degrees hotter under load, irregardless of whether the fans on the radiator on the side were set to intake or exhaust. In terms of our GPU temperatures, removing the rear exhaust fans only made a difference with the fans in the radiator set to exhaust, where our GPU was 2 degrees hotter under load. In terms of noise, removing the rear exhaust fans was associated with 1 decibel less noise under load. So in terms of those rear exhaust fans, they do seem to improve the temperatures, although the improvement in temperature really is only 2 degrees, and you're going to have to weigh that up in terms of the cost of purchasing the fans and the aesthetics. I think if you really like the look of the fans at the rear, and I do, I would go ahead and install them. If you're not fussed on the looks, I would leave them out. Save yourself some money, because they're only going to marginally improve your temperatures. So in terms of my advice for building in this case, I would have your radiator on the side of the case set to exhaust. I would have the fans at the bottom set to intake, and I would have rear exhaust fans because I personally think they make a big difference to the aesthetics. So there may be a few cooling configurations you were interested in that I haven't tested. If you wanted to know about turning the fans on the rear round and having them set to intake, particularly thinking with reverse blade fans, this might actually look quite good. I'm not going to do that because the rear of this case is on filters, and actively bringing unfiltered air full of dust into the build isn't something I'm going to entertain or recommend. The second thing you might be interested in is, what about the performance of this mesh panel at the top that Lian-Li have added in? Should we put fans and radiators at the top? To me, this is absolute madness. It's not something I'm going to entertain on this channel. This is the vision. It should have glass on the top, the front and the side joining seamlessly, giving you this lovely look into the build. If you want a mesh panel on the top, in my opinion, buy another case. So moving on to my experience of building in the case, and this was a really easy case to build in. I think the only thing I had trouble with was mounting the fans and radiator on the side. I centered this on the side bracket, and then when I tried to reinstall it, it wouldn't go into the case because the radiator was catching on the top. The only way I could get it to go in was to mount the radiator as close to the bottom of the bracket as I could, and at that stage I was then able to insert it into the case. So moving on to the things I like about the case, and I like exactly the same thing I liked about the O11 Vision, and that is, I think this case is absolutely stunning. We are able to look in from the front, the side and the top through the tempered glass panel and see all your build in its glory. And I think the white version that I've got here looks really good because the tempered glass panels are completely clear. The black version of the Vision that I had reviewed, there was a little bit of tint on these panels and it just didn't look quite as good as the clear glass on the white version. Lian-Li have gone even further with this case with this large rubber grommet where you are able to route your IO tubes through the second compartment, meaning there's only a small amount of the tubes visible in the main body of the case, giving a really clean look. Another thing that you can do to really improve the aesthetics of this case is use a back connector motherboard, and it's great to see that Lian-Li have added support to this in the O11 Vision Compact. So moving on to the things I didn't like about the case, and this is quite difficult because this is a really good case. There is two things though I have thought of, and the first is it would have been really nice to have had dust filters over those large perforated areas on the side panels. And the second thing is I can't really understand why Lian-Li have given us the option of a mesh panel on the top of the case. As I've mentioned, for me this case is about aesthetics, and that's what sets the Vision apart from the other O11 cases. And if you don't want this, you're much better going to pick up one of the other O11 cases where you're going to have much more features. You're going to be able to invert those cases. You're going to be able to move your I/O, add additional I/O. This case has much less of those features, and I think its main selling point is the tempered glass on the top. So taking that away and giving you the option of a mesh panel doesn't make sense, and I would much rather have it just had the one panel at the top and taken a little bit off the price for that additional mesh panel that is not going to be used and is going to stay in the box. So now we reach the stage in the review where I to tell you, should you go out and get this case? And probably what you're wondering is, should I get this or the original O11 Vision? Now in terms of price, the original O11 Vision is probably around about £5 or £10 or dollars more than what this case's MSRP is going to be. So the compact version, it should be a little bit cheaper. As well, in the compact version, you are getting a few advantages that you're not going to get in the original O11 Vision. You've got that large cutout where you can route your tubes around the back, and you've got back connector motherboard support. So two things that are going to really significantly improve the aesthetics of your build. So as its name suggests, the O11 Vision Compact is a little bit smaller than the original O11 Vision, and this is going to mean that the components you can put in it are going to be a little bit limited compared to the original. On paper, there is some limitations. In reality, I don't think you are limited at all. You're still able to fit full-sized EATX motherboards. In terms of graphics card support, this is reduced down by around about 22mm, but you can see I've got a massive graphics card in here and there's still absolutely loads of space. In terms of your power supply, it comes down by 12mm by going by the compact version, but you still are able to fit a power supply up to 200mm, which is absolutely loads. CPU cooler height, it comes down by 7mm. Again, not a big issue for most people because most people are going to be going with an AIO in this case. Your SSD support comes down from 3 to 2 in terms of the bracket at the back, and you're still able to fit another 2 in the hard drive cage if you want. So again, not a big issue for me because I'm going to be using mostly NVMe drives in the builds I put together. Again, the 140mm support is gone apart from that bracket at the top, which I'm not going to talk about, but these 120mm fans actually look good, and I think they actually fill the case quite nicely. So I think for me, if I had the two cases sitting side by side and I was told pick one, I would definitely take the O11 Vision Compact because I think it is a better all-round case than the original O11 Vision. In terms of whether you should get this over something else, if aesthetics are important to you, then definitely I think you should, because there's very few cases where your build can look this good in it, and I can 100% recommend this case. If you are thinking of doing a build in the case, I have made a full step-by-step PC build guide in it, and you'll find a link to that video in the description. If you have enjoyed this review, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching.